All right, good. Yeah, I'm Ephraim Frankel.
And we are doing our project on the Peace Corps, and we were wondering, when did you decide that Peace Corps was something that you wanted to participate in?
I decided on the Peace Corps my junior year in college as an undergraduate. I had read a book on Ataturk, who was kind of like the founder of modern Turkey. And aside from being an astounding looking character, he seemed like a combination of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and John Kennedy. And I thought, this has got to be an interesting country. So I signed up for Turkey. And fortunately, they sent me. Some people wanted to go to Turkey and ended up in Thailand.
Well, what did you do when you were in Turkey?
What I did, the first thing was to learn Turkish as well as I could, because no one in the villages where I was assigned, no one spoke any English. So the first thing was to learn Turkish. That took me about 9 months. The Turks would say, not meanly, but they say, he went to college, but he just isn't very smart, because my Turkish wasn't that good. But after that, it got to be good. The things I did brought up the first library to the village, a set of 200 books in Turkish. Brought the first gas lantern to the village so that people in the library could library could actually read the books at night. The big project was a sanitary toilet for the village. What that means is a mesh-shaped pipe with a flush unit. I know that sounds very primitive, and it was. Well, but they didn't have that at that time. So my project was, one of them was getting the villagers. It took that took 9 months too. To get everybody to sign a petition, get the materials. It was a community project. So we got everything together, and then they didn't do anything. And I got very frustrated. And I said, I'm going to make my own toilet, because I'd like to have my own. So I got all my own stuff and started to make my own next to my little place. And then they finished theirs for the village before I finished mine.
And what was the kind of house you lived in?
Well, it was very basic. I can show you a picture in a minute or two, but the only heating was a wood stove. And in the wintertime, because I was high up in the mountains, the water and the milk that I would have in the village would freeze. There would be a layer of ice on it in the morning. So at nighttime, I would put some kindling next to the stove, about a quarter cup of kerosene, and then some wooden matches. So when I got up in the morning, and it was like freezing, I would throw the wood in, throw the kerosene on the wood, and light a match, throw the match in the wood stove. There would be a small explosion. Well, it would light up. And then I had heat.
And was that one of the hardest things to adapt to, or what would you say the hardest thing to adapt to was in that culture?
I think the hardest thing to adapt to was living alone with people who didn't speak my language, and missing my family and missing other Americans. But it was a small price to pay for the experience.
And how long were you gone?
2 years. I was actually in country for 23 months. We were the first group to actually train. We were in the rural community development group. We think of it as the elite group, because we were the ones who were assigned to villages, in remote villages. We really got to know the language and the people in ways that people in the city never did, the volunteers in the city.
And what was the thing you came to most appreciate about living in that village?
I think the, the human relationships that were formed with people in the village, they were, it was an international relationship, a kind of a bicultural relationship where they'd never seen an American before. They didn't even know how far America was from the village. So just getting to develop friendships, Peace Corps was always thought of as person-to-person diplomacy. And those friendships, which were formed 40, 45 years ago, are still there. I still communicate with them, and they communicate with me.
That's really cool. And when you came back from America, I mean, what was one thing on your outlook on life here that had changed?
Totally changed. I had more of an understanding of how other people in other countries see us. And I had this fabulous international experience of having lived in Turkey for nearly 2 years. Can I give you an example
Yes, it's
of the nature of the understanding and the bonds, the nature of the friendship? It was the height of the Vietnam War, and there was a lot of anti-American feeling in Turkey because they were opposed to the war. And one afternoon, the 3 elders of the village came to me looking pretty serious and pretty grim. And they said to me, we want to talk to you. Ooh, this sounds serious. They said, we want to tell you we don't like your government. Now, mind you, I'm like almost 2 days away from getting to the American embassy. I said, we don't like your government, and we don't like your war in Vietnam. It's a bad war. You're going to lose. God knows you're going to lose. You're a big country beating up on a little people. Now, mind you, these people didn't have more than an 8th or 10th grade education. So I said, you're going to lose. It's a bad war. And we wanted to tell you that we like you because you live with us, you speak Turkish with us, you work with us. We've been working on a number of projects. And he said, don't worry if the American government comes to take you, which they meant to have you, take me into the army. They said, don't worry, we'll hide you, we'll protect you, we have rifles. And I never said a word. But that was the kind of relationship I think most of the volunteers, the community development people had with the villagers. We knew that they would protect us because that human relationship was there.
Do you think that your presence in that village had as great an impact on that village and those people as it did for you, for coming back and as a person?
That's a great question. I think it had a bigger impact on me than it had on villagers. I'm thinking here as we're talking, I had some pictures. Well, anyway, we can keep talking. Yeah, I think it had much more of an impact on me, I think. They say it was 2 years of service, but it really lasted a lifetime. To the extent that just last year, at the 50th anniversary of the Peace Corps, a friend, another Peace Corps volunteer, and myself brought a Turkish professor over to Washington, D.C., who really stole the show. He's doing research on the Peace Corps in Turkey,
That's really cool.
and actually he knows Allie and kind of watches over her.
Really cool. And what would you feel that is the most important thing that the Peace Corps does overseas?
It builds human, personal, multinational relationships that really mean something. You know, I think that's the most enduring legacy of the Peace Corps is these friendships that are people-to-people friendships. The critics in Turkey, by the way, were very fearful, and they accused the Peace Corps of coming to Turkey to brainwash the people. But what Professor Zafer Parlak concluded after his studies was something else after he did all this research. So the brainwashing never happened. What really happened was that it was the other way around. The Peace Corps ended up leaving their hearts in Turkey.
And what is the thing you most try and share with people here about your experience and about your time here?
That the Turks are really, on a person-to-person basis, a wonderful people. It was a fabulous experience. I think more Americans need to have more international experience because that's what makes a difference. Einstein said that all learning, all knowledge, he said, all knowledge is experience. Everything else is just information. We had a real experience there that is still alive in all of us 45 years after the fact.